Hello everyone, I am Dr. Munish Kumar Bharadwaj from School of Engineering and Technology of IGNOU. Today I will discuss with you joints in concrete and formwork. In previous lectures, I discussed with you transportation of concrete, placing of concrete, then compaction of concrete, then curing of concrete, then finishing of concrete. Now, today we will be discussing two topics. One is joints in concrete construction and another one is formwork. So let us begin with joints in concrete. So what is the need of providing joints in concrete construction? When the large concrete members such as factory floors, workshop floors, long columns, residential floors, road pavements, airfield pavements, etc. are constructed, it is not practicable and advisable to place the concrete continuously in one stretch. A joint is left between subsequent concreting stretches and it is called as construction joint. So this is what is the construction joint. Why we provide? Concrete may undergo expansion and contraction due to thermal changes, moisture movement, drying shrinkage, and due to structural reasons. So to make up for the impending expansion or contraction of concrete, a proper provision is made in the form of a joint. Such joints are called contraction or expansion joints. So let us see what are different type of joints. So joints are classified into three groups. First is construction joints, second expansion joints, and third one is contraction joints. Let us understand what are these construction joints. Construction joints are the temporary joints provided between subsequent concreting operations. The positions of construction joints should be predetermined before starting of concreting operation. We have to decide where we have to give the construction joint. The joint should be horizontal in walls and columns and should be arranged at such a level to coincide with the general architectural features so that it does not look odd. Means if there are some architectural features, so it is better to coincide our construction joints also. Otherwise, they will be visible separately and it will look odd. In columns, the concrete should be filled up to a few inches below the junction of beams. The joint should be made at the point of minimum shear in beams and slab. So this is the position of the joint where we should provide the construction joint. Concrete should be poured in one stretch till construction joint is reached. Otherwise, another joint will be visible there. The construction joint must not be provided at the point of maximum bending moment in any case. Badly made and poorly finished construction joints will give an ugly appearance to the construction. Therefore, it must be properly finished. The joints must be made at such places that concrete comes under least maximum bending moment and shear force. Now let us understand what are expansion joints. Concrete is subjected to volume change due to temperature variations, shrinkage, etc. Therefore, the provision must be made to cater for the volume change by way of joint to relieve the stresses produced. In small buildings, no expansion joint is needed in the floor or in the roof because expansion is very small as it is a function of length of the member. A long building undergoes large expansion. It is estimated that for the worst conditions, a long building may undergo an expansion of as much as 2.5 cm. Therefore, buildings longer than 45 meters are generally provided with one or more expansion joints. Roof of a long building is affected by maximum temperature variations. The roof is subjected to expansion and contraction during day and night and causes pushing or pulling to the load bearing walls. Because walls are attached with the roof, so when there is expansion or contraction, there will be pushing or pulling of the wall. Serious cracks have been found in the masonry wall supporting the slab due to the expansion and the contraction. Hence, attempt is made to create a condition for a slab to slide over the wall when it is under expansion or contraction. Means you provide the simple support where there is a slide is possible, slide of the roof is possible over the walls. So any expansion or contraction of the roof will not affect the wall. The details such as the length of structure where expansion joint is to be provided can be determined after taking into consideration many factors such as temperature, exposure to weather, time and season of the laying of the concrete, etc. Under no circumstances shall a structure of 45 meters or more be without an expansion joint. In the past, expansion joints were provided at closer intervals in the floors and the pavements. These days, from experience, it is seen that concrete does not actually expand to the extent indicated by the simple analytical calculations because of the frictional resistance offered by the subgrade. It is therefore possible to provide expansion joint at a much farther interval than in the past. Let us see what are the recommendations of IS Code 456 regarding these joints. In view of the large number of factors involved in deciding the location, spacing and nature of expansion joints, the provision of expansion joint in reinforced cement concrete structures should be left to the discretion of the reinforced cement concrete designer. Means designer should decide. For purposes of general guidelines, however, it is recommended that structures exceeding 45 meters in length shall be divided by one or more expansion joints. Means in such buildings there should be one or more expansion joints as it is needed. Now let us move to contraction joints. Concrete is subjected to plastic shrinkage and drying shrinkage, due to which concrete shrinks. Stresses are developed and cracks are formed when shrinkage is restrained. Means if you are not allowing any shrinkage, then in that case what will happen? The stresses will be developed and cracks may be formed. Contraction joints are provided to avoid these cracks. Normally, these joints are provided at 5 meter to 10 meter interval. After 5 meter or 10 meter of length, these joints are provided. Contraction joints are also called dummy joints or control joints. These joints will not be required if a provision is made to take up the shrinkage stresses by reinforcement. Means if reinforcement is able to take up the shrinkage stresses, then these joints are not required. Hence, contraction joints are provided in unreinforced floors and pavements. Contraction joints are made at the time of laying concrete by embedding a timber plank or batten of sufficient depth and required thickness. Means you can use timber plank or a batten of sufficient depth and thickness. This is afterward removed when the concrete is hardened. Sometimes steel plates of required thickness and width are forced down into the fresh concrete and then removed when the concrete is hardened. Sometimes contraction joints of required width and depth are cut by using a joint sawing machine. So by using this joint sawing machine, you can cut and make the joint. It is necessary that groove cut should be filled up with some joint sealing compound to protect the edges of concrete and also to prevent water from being held. The depth of joint should be about 2 cm. In residential flooring, the conventional contraction joints is omitted by casting the slab in alternate bays to allow for the complete plastic shrinkage and also for maximum extent of drying shrinkage. Means what you will be doing? You will be casting the slab in alternate bays, not in continuous thing. It is usual practice to place glass strip or aluminium strip in between the bays to create discontinuity between adjacent bays to prevent the development of continuous cracks. You must have seen in the floor that these floor is divided into different bays actually, and these bays are separated by some glass strips or the metallic strips, and if there is some crack, it will not go further in another bay because of this glass or the metal strip. So this is all about the joints. Now let us move to formwork. This is also very important part of the concreting operation, because if our formwork is good, it is of good quality, then our construction quality will be good. So that temporary construction used as a mold for the structure in which the concrete is placed and in which it hardens is called as formwork. So this is the definition that what is formwork basically. It is the mold in which the concrete is poured and where it hardens, because whatever shape you want for your structural element, you have to make the shape of that formwork of that shape. Formwork must be strong enough to withstand the hydrostatic pressure of wet concrete. So what happens basically when the concrete is wet? So, and when you pour the concrete in the formwork, then it will apply a hydrostatic pressure, means in lateral direction it will try to dislodge the formwork because it is applying a lateral pressure over the formwork. So the method of compaction, size and shape of formwork also affects the shutter pressure. This pressure depends upon the method of compaction, because when you are compacting the concrete, again the pressure will come on the formwork. Also the size and shape of the formwork will also affect the pressure coming over the formwork. Formwork should be tight in order to prevent concrete from leaking out. This is very important thing, because if that concrete, if it is leaking, then first of all that cement paste will come out and it will make the concrete you can say weak, And second thing, if it leaks out then and hardens, it will be having very bad appearance on the surface of the element. Formwork should be easy to handle so that no time is wasted in assembling and disassembling. Formworks vary both in type and in method of construction. Let us see what are the requirements for formwork. The form should have sufficient strength to support the load, first of all. The sheeting should be durable and rigid. The sheeting should be thick enough to withstand the pressure of wet concrete. The components of forms should be large enough to carry the loads and forces without buckling. Means it should safely carry the load and there should not be any buckling. The formwork should be of reasonable size and weight for easy handling, transportation and erection. Means here very important thing is that size should not be very large or it should not be very heavy, otherwise it will create problem in handling, transportation and erection. The formwork should be easily and speedily erected. It should be such that it can be easily and speedily erected. The form surface should give a smooth finishing, because the appearance of your structural member or that concrete member will depend upon the smooth finishing, and if the surface of the formwork is not smooth, the surface of your member, concrete member, will not be smooth. So it is very important that surface of the form should be smooth in finishing. The joints of the form should be tight enough to prevent any material leakage. Now, how we check the formwork? First of all, the geometric dimensions of the formwork should be checked, because these dimensions of the formwork will finally decide the dimension of your concrete member. So we have to be very particular about the geometrical dimensions of the formwork. The accuracy of the horizontal surfaces should be controlled by levels and vertical surfaces by plumb bobs, because it should provide a level surface in horizontal plane. So we have to check its level with the levels basically, and it should be vertical also. So its verticality we can check with plumb bobs. The sawdust, nails, mud particles etc. should be removed before placing concrete. The alignment of the formwork should not be disturbed during concreting operations. Oiling should be done in order to prevent sticking of concrete with formwork and to ensure a smooth surface of concrete. The joints in the formwork should be checked to avoid the leakage of the material. The old surface should be wetted before placing the concrete. Now let us see what are different materials which are used for making the formwork. So first of all, we will discuss about timber. The partially seasoned timber is most satisfactory for use of formwork. Green timber dries out and shrinks. It causes fins and ridges on the concrete. So we should not use the green timber for making formwork. Kiln-dried timber has a tendency to swell when soaked with water from concrete. It causes bulging and distortion if the boards are tightly joined. So provision for light swelling should always be made in case of seasoned timber. Provision for slight swelling should always be made in case of seasoned timber. Let us see how we make sheeting of timber. We make the sheeting of timber by using boards of 12.5 centimeter, 15 centimeter, 17.5 centimeter, 20 centimeter, 22.5 centimeter and 25 centimeter wide. Various heights of centering can usually be obtained without excessive soiling. Thin sheeting means which is of 2.5 centimeter is used for the sides of the beams and column boxes. The sheetings of 3.75 centimeter to 5 centimeter are used for the soffits of beam. Let us see how we make the timber joists. Joists are commonly 15 centimeter by 5 centimeter but may vary from 10 centimeter by 5 centimeter to 22.5 centimeter to 10 centimeter according to the type of wall. Let us see the timber posts. Posts may be 7.5 centimeter by 10 centimeter to 12.5 centimeter by 12.5 centimeter. How we make the timber studs, wales, head trees, subsidiary bearers and transoms. These may vary from 10 centimeter by 5 centimeter to about 12.5 centimeter by 12.5 centimeter. Sections about 7.5 centimeter by 5 centimeter are useful for general bracing and light shuttering. So these are the things about the timber. Now let us see about that steel, how steel form is made and what are the different properties. Steel forms can be used for as many number of times as desired and as such are economical. Means why we are saying this here? Because timber formwork are having problem that it cannot be used many times, because by nailing and using these timber formwork sometimes actually get distorted or there are cracks also in these, so it can be used for a up to limited number of times only. Whereas if you see steel can be used for many times, so that way it makes it the use of steel formwork as economical. The better finish can be achieved by the use of steel forms as they are factory made and fit exactly. This is also very good thing about steel formwork, because they are made in factories and fit exactly, so they provide a very good finish and very smooth surfaces. Now let us see what are the advantages of steel formwork over other type of formwork. Here in steel formwork, quality of work is assured, because as I told you that they are factory made and fit exactly, so they provide a very good finish. Here wastage of material is eliminated, because there in case of timber we size the timber planks and that other timber material according to the use, so it is cut many times as per the requirement and there is a wastage of the material. Here we are not cutting it into any piece basically in case of steel, so here wastage of material is eliminated. Handling and transportation costs are reduced. It reduces finishing cost also. It reduces friction losses. A smaller number of tie rods required in case of steel form. These are safer than other materials. In order to obtain additional uses of the steel forms, adjustment of various size can be easily be incorporated in the design of steel forms. Collapsing and stripping is a smooth and gradual operation because it is usually controlled by jacks. Now let us see formworks for our different structural members. First of all, we will discuss about the formwork for walls. A common arrangement for wall formwork is shown here in the figure. Just let us see. In this figure, what you see, there is sheeting, then there are studs, and they are tied with the bolts. So horizontal long members are sheeting basically, and the cross members you see here are studs, and they are tied with the bolts. So this is the formwork for the wall, and it is held together with bolts fitted with sleeve pieces. In this case, the sheeting is placed horizontally, as you saw in the figure. It spans between vertical studs. Under the horizontal pressure due to wet concrete, the pressure on either side of the form is self-balanced. Now let us see formwork for columns. Here in this figure, you see a common arrangement for column formwork, and as you can see, here the members are vertical. In case of wall, you saw that members were horizontal. Here the members are vertical, and these vertical members are held together by wedges and the bolts. So this way, this formwork is provided for the column, and in this formwork the concrete is poured to cast column. The two sides are held together by bolts and the two opposite sides by hardwood wedges between the bolt and the form. The sheeting runs in vertical direction, as you saw in the figure. It is made up into panel units. Different panels are there. At the head, provision is made for linking with the formwork for horizontal beam. So at the head, you can link this formwork with the formwork of the horizontal beam. So that way, if you are for monolithic construction, you can join these formwork of the column and formwork of the beam. Now let us see the formwork for beams and slabs. The formwork in case of beam is constructed in such a way that the sides may be stripped before the soffit. Means here there is a provision that you can remove the side pieces and soffit will remain in that place from the same formwork. So it is so because the soffit must be left in place till the beam can safely support its own weight. Because here soffit is providing support to take up the weight of the beam, and it should remain in its place till the beam is hard enough to take up its own weight. So up to that time, soffit has to be there, but you can remove the sides of the formwork. The slab formwork is supported by the centering to the beam. The centering provided to the beam can support the slab form. Here in these figures, you see the formwork for heavy beams and slabs. Also, in second figure, you see the post for the beam centering. Then in another figure, you see here the beam centering with slab centering, and in the last figure you see that centering for heavy beams. Another figure you also see the beam centering where an alternative method is given here. for this purpose. Now let us discuss about the faults in erection of formwork. What may be the faults while we are erecting the formwork? First of all, sheeting may be too thin. So we have to be very careful that sheeting should have sufficient thickness. The bad sheeting joints which will lead to leakage of concrete. We should avoid such bad joints. No distance piece is provided. Then strut is small and buckles. Then no veiling are provided. Another fault is that warped sheeting is used. Another one may be that cleat is too small, it is cut wrongly. Also, sole plate is not provided, which will cause uneven distribution of load to ground. Then another problem may be that stake section is small and driven to insufficient depth, and there may be cases when no strutting at the base of the shutters is provided. So these are some possible faults which may come into picture because of the mistakes or bad workmanship. So we have to be very careful and we should avoid such type of faults for safe construction and getting a good construction. Now finally we come to the removal of formwork. When we can remove the formwork? The suitability of the materials of the formwork for reuse depends in many respects on the way removal is done. The shuttering boards frameworks are broken, the smooth surface is damaged, and the bracing is bent if the forms are not removed carefully. So that way it is very important. We have to be very careful while removing the formwork. Therefore, removal of formwork should be carried out in a careful and orderly way. Formwork should not be removed without specific instructions from the engineer in charge. The engineer in charge, before issuing instructions, should make sure that the concrete has attained sufficient strength to carry its own load and any other load which is carried at the top. The sides of the formworks which are not loaded by weight of concrete member should not be removed before the concrete gains strength. The lateral shuttering is usually removed in summer within 2 to 3 days. Posts supporting the formwork of the load bearing structures should be removed only after stripping the sides of the form. Load bearing formwork should be removed only after concrete has gained strength. Let us see what are the steps for striking the formwork. First of all, loosening of tie wires is done. Then supports are removed which support the formwork. Removing the shuttering boards or panels is done. Then under normal circumstances, when the temperature is 20 degrees centigrade and the cement is used ordinary, the formwork may be stripped after the expiry to the following periods. What are these periods? For vertical sides of columns, walls, beams and slabs, 1 to 2 days. For beam soffits, 7 days. Then bottom of slabs, there are 2 separate cases. Span of 4.5 meter, 7 days. Span of 4.6 meter and above. Bottom of beams up to a span of 6 meter. Bottom of arch ribs up to a span of 6 meter. Then you can do after 14 days. Then for bottom of beams and arch ribs over 6 meter span, you can remove the formwork after 21 days. So these are the suggested periods after which you can remove the formwork. So this way we have discussed in this lecture, first of all, the joints in concrete construction, and after that the formwork for construction. So I think you must have enjoyed this discussion and understood the concept very deeply. So we will discuss other things in our other lecture. So thank you for watching.